a couple days later, Suge called a meeting at the offices of Death Row. Reggie had a secret meeting outside the offices. What did he say to Frank Alexander and everybody else before that meeting?
Well, Frank wasn't at the meeting. Michael Moore was at the meeting, and a couple of the other bodyguards. I think Kenny Archer may have been in there. I'm not positive, but Michael Moore was at this meeting that was called at Death Row headquarters. Yeah, Frank at that point, Frank was, I won't say he was hiding, but that's pretty much what he was laying low because, that shitstorm that came down and him being the main bodyguard there, it didn't look well for him. And of course, we talk about that, the meeting that they had, when Suge found out that Pac had actually died and he threw a phone across the table, it fell in the pool. Frank was right there. Reggie told Frank, you need to get out of here right now. When Reggie called that meeting at Death Row, Michael Moore says that he had his own meeting with the guards outside before they went in to talk to the artist, because the artist wanted to know what the hell happened. I mean, here you've got just not Suge Knight, but everybody was nervous about that. In fact, we have a source that actually told us that he was with Hammer and was one of Hammer's bodyguards. And when Hammer's entourage found out and their bodyguards found out that no one was allowed to carry any weapons, one of his main bodyguards, one of his main guys, told Hammer to leave Las Vegas. Get out of there. This is going to be a bad situation because your guys are going unarmed and that's not going to happen. Well, Hammer didn't want to leave, and this guy actually left himself. He left Vegas because he was not going to be a part of something where people were running around with no guns. So the artists were really questioning what was happening with this whole thing about, what happened. And so Reggie pulled Michael Moore aside, and a couple of other guards had a meeting outside there and told them, do not talk about not carrying your weapons, because we know from the interviews that Suge Knight did with Vegas police that he fully expected that they would have their weapons on them, that Frank would be armed, that they'd all be armed. And this notion that they're not supposed to, I've heard it say, oh, well, that meeting was just telling them, they didn't really say not to carry their weapons. They were told that there was a permit issue and you couldn't carry a concealed weapon in Nevada with permit. If you didn't have a permit, you couldn't carry a gun. Well, Nevada is an open carry state. Nevada, you can carry a firearm anywhere in the city of Las Vegas, in the state of Nevada. You can open carry a firearm. So the whole argument that they needed a permit, why would you need a permit? If you could carry it on you openly, why would you need to be concerned whether or not you had a concealed weapon or not? You carry it openly. What does it matter at that point? So it kind of lets the air of that whole argument. Well, yeah. And so it lets that whole air of the argument that they went to the attorney's place and they had to sign documents that said that they wouldn't carry a concealed weapon. Well, that's just a bunch of crap. It's not true. Nobody's produced a single document. Nobody's produced any evidence of that whatsoever that was ever said. And when they went to that meeting, Reggie told Michael Moore and them to not even mention the subject that they were told not to carry any weapons. Because obviously, who's the one that told them not to carry any weapons, right? So Michael Moore then defied that, went into that meeting because he was so upset, and spoke up. Because he said that Reggie wasn't going to say anything. Reggie wasn't going to speak up. And it left them all kind of vulnerable because here's all these artists thinking these security guards are idiots. So Michael Moore spoke up and said, we were told not to carry our weapons. Now, as we had in the movie, we've got, we have a corroborating witness. We have Suge's driver, who's Death Row Dave Matthews. Death Row Dave Matthews raised the stakes by saying not only did they have that meeting with the guards in the morning, but there was a second meeting that was held in the afternoon where even the cops that were there were told not to carry any weapons. So how do you tell cops not to carry any weapons? Of course, they're going to make up their own minds whether they're going to or not. But at the end of the day, when you have more than one person telling the same story, why would 3 or 4 different people lie about that? Why would they make that up? And so you've got Reggie in there telling Michael Moore, according to Michael Moore, don't say anything about the weapons. Now, let's talk about Michael Moore for a quick second. You got to realize, and I don't have this in this last movie, but if you go back and watch the first assassination movie, there's something very important to know about Michael Moore. Michael Moore did not like Tupac. Didn't like him. And the reason he didn't like him was because I think it was, and the same thing happened with Leslie Galden, who was another one of the bodyguards there. Pac was sometimes asking him to go do some favors for him that weren't exactly legal things to do, and these guys didn't like, kind of getting in the middle of all that. And they felt like they were kind of being taken advantage of by Tupac, and they, ordered around and stuff like that, being errand boys and doing illegal things like getting guns or whatever the case might be. And Michael Moore didn't like Tupac, didn't like him. He would work with him, he'd be his bodyguard, but he didn't like him. So why would a guy who doesn't like Tupac have a motive to get up there and say anything other than the truth? What does it benefit him?